If you like stuff, then check out the Am I Stuff podcast with Mr. Kelsey Hudgins. He's a fella.
Live from the Venmo Hudgins-1 Studios.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You heard Norm Macdonald himself say it. Live from the Screwball Whiskey Studios. Does my mic... This sounds like it's got auto-tune on it or something. But it shouldn't. Why does it sound like that? Anybody else hear that? Sound weird to anybody but me? Huh. Yeah, this thing sounds very like, sounds like it's got like auto-tune on or something. Some weirdness. Is that it? Did that do it? No, it's still that. It still sounds weird. Why does it sound so weird? It sounds like there's like something digital, something like electronic or computery with it. What's doing that? It shouldn't be anything. That could go to one side and this comes to the other. Is that fun if you're wearing headphones? Is that interesting to you? Is that pretty cool? I think that's nice. That's audibly pleasing. Anyway, I don't even have GarageBand open. I don't know why that sounds so weird. But I would turn the board off and back on, but I don't think that'll do anything. Anyway, so once let me get GarageBand in here opened up. I totally forgot to get that going before I went live, so I should have done that first. But what can you do? I got the guitar today, though. Now, let me get in here and pop this thing out right here. To leave that there. Excuse me. Let me do a new. What's up, guys? How's it going? I'm getting the GarageBand open. It's saying my video output is low. I don't know if I'm streaming, if I'm still... I don't know what's going on. I don't know. But nothing I can do about it. I can't make the internet better. New track. Record using a microphone, create, and shorten this up over here so I can get to this spot. Screwball, Norm. Yeah, so I made the, sup, Chief. Yeah, just the thing sounds weird, man. It just I know that it's like something that maybe only I can hear, but it just sounds like I'm in a barrel. It sounds like there's some wicked echo on it or something like that, or like some sort of weird reverb or something like that. Allie Makovsky. Go check out Allie Makovsky, by the way, if you guys like comedy. Allie's hilarious. She's opening up for like Rogan and shit now. She made it. She done made it. Good for her. All right. Now, that actually what I'm going to talk about today is movies and TV and stuff like that. So if you're not into movies and TVs and stuff like that, or not like movies and TV shows and things like that, this is going to be an episode full of that stuff. But it's just weird shit that I've been watching, by the way. So there's that. All right, let me mute this. Go ahead and start that. All right, so I got that going. And the audio is recording, and now I've just gave you that little bit of silence there for you, audio people. Aren't you glad that I did that? So, I have... I've got this chair. I got to hit some WD-40 on this chair or something like that. Is that a thing? Or do I just take the top off and just put some grease down in there? Just throw some Crisco in that bitch and call it a day. I don't know. Anyway. So, anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a prolonged amount of time, and if you haven't, then you probably already cut this episode off. But if you've made it this far, I appreciate you hanging out with me. And anybody who's listened to the podcast before, I really do. I've talked to a lot of people in the last couple of days who've come up to me and been like, "Hey man, I've been watching your show. I've been listening to your podcast." And that's made me feel really, really good lately. And you know what? For all of you guys, I'm just very happy for you. Just give yourself a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Just go ahead and give yourself a big old round of applause. Give yourself a big old round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. You've earned it. You've earned it. If you wonder why that didn't happen on time, I didn't have the volume up on the computer, so I had to improvise. So if that would have gone the way I wanted it to, it would have been like, give yourself a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. You did just so good there. It's just... So I have lately been listening, or watching rather, and I'll listen to a couple of episodes, but for the most part I would watch them because so much shit would happen that you want to see on screen. And because I do I listen to all my stuff on YouTube Red, and I've got like the YouTube Red account where you can close the YouTube app and it still plays. So I've got that, and that's mostly how I exclusively listen to all of my podcasts or watch I get all of my podcast intake from YouTube. And so anyway, yeah, I have watched this show, Kill Tony, and I'm sorry about this chair. I know it is fucking annoying, but I've watched this show, Kill Tony, that I've talked about for a really long time on the podcast, and I am very excited about the Kill Tony show. Matter of fact, Allie Makovsky that liked my tweet is as a former regular on Kill Tony, and she's killing it right now. She's doing great. But anyway, those of y'all who know that I was watching Kill Tony, and I used to in the podcast in the past, I would give you guys things that I've been watching and things that I've been paying attention to and things I've been listening to and whatnot. But I haven't done that in a long time because it was the same answer every week, because I'd be watching the same thing. Like, I've just gone over the last couple of excuse me, but over the last couple of months when it was Game of Thrones that I was watching all at once, it just seemed like I was telling you the same thing over and over. So that being said, watching Kill Tony over the course of about 4 months. not even 4 months, really, just like 3 months and about 20 something days. So I've watched 383 episodes in like 4 months, and all of these episodes are an hour plus. Some of them are 2 hours, and I got introduced to so many comics that I didn't know that I excuse me again. I got introduced to so many comics I didn't know that that I really appreciate now, like folks like Dom Irera and Eric Griffin, faces that I would recognize from stuff that I've seen, but I wouldn't know where I knew them from, like I'd have to do the IMDb thing, but, oh, they were in this. And while I was binging on Kill Tony, like and this show's been going on for about 5 years now, 5.5 years or something like that. So I watched like 5.5 years of content in like 4 months. And I'm sorry, I'm just clearing my throat the whole time in your ears. Forgive me for that, guys. I'm sorry. Anyway, and I have my water here, so I might need to take a swig of this. How about Mikey McKernan is not funny? Mikey McKernan is funny. Boo. Ha. Oh, and by the way, we have stickers now. You can barely see me in there. It's like, yeah, almost. You can barely see it in there. But I'm in there. We got another one too, but they're on where I can't reach them. Anyway, in watching Kill Tony, I was introduced to a lot of comics and folks that I didn't know where I knew them from, or just people that I really enjoy now. And excuse me, a lot of the podcasts that I listen to now are things like Resting Bitch with Ali Makovsky. I literally just watched the last week's episode of her podcast, and I've got this week's episode to watch now. And that's what she was replying to on Twitter. I was like, yeah, I'm on this one now, and I'll watch the next one later. Next one on deck. But watching that podcast now, and Malcolm Hatchett, who was a regular on Kill Tony for a very long time. He's actually from right up the road here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and he does his podcast, but he doesn't do video. So I listen to his podcast, and one of the very few that I actually listen to. But in other news, there's another podcast that I've been listening to lately called Voices of Misery podcast, and Rob from Couch on Fire, which is also a very good podcast. You should check out Couch on Fire. I actually did an episode of his podcast with him the other night, and that dropped the morning after. So Couch on Fire podcast, go check that out. The most recent episode of Couch on Fire podcast, I was a guest talking about sports and college football and stuff like that on his podcast. So check that out. Couch on Fire is doing some good shit. But anyway, Rob from Couch on Fire recommended a podcast called Voices of Misery, which I've been listening to lately, and they're pretty good too. But anyway, that's that side note. But yes, most of the stuff that I've started listening to lately have been influenced by Kill Tony, like things that I've heard those guys talk about. And one of the things that I kept hearing come up on Kill Tony was a show called I'm Dying Up Here. And I remember hearing about it and just hearing how they talked about it, and the reverence that all the comics that would be guests on the panel of Kill Tony would be. And by the way, I'm going at this understanding that you guys have listened to my podcast before, and that I shouldn't, because I've already explained what Kill Tony is, but just in case this is the first episode of this podcast that you've heard, I want to make sure to explain excuse me, that Kill Tony is a podcast that is live, and it is recorded live at the world famous Comedy Store in Los Angeles. and it is, the Comedy Store is the mecca of all comedy. Like, that's where everybody, well, like Seinfeld, actually Seinfeld was a New York guy, but who was it? I know Kinnison was a Comedy Store guy. Richard Pryor was a Comedy Store guy. I'm pretty sure Letterman was a Comedy Store guy. And just so many great comics that are running the game right now are Comedy Store people. And I sort of just, through watching Rogan's podcast and all the comics that he's had on, and then Your Mom's House and Burtcast and Something's Burning and stuff like that, and then inevitably all of that leading to Kill Tony, which, and nothing against any of those other podcasts that are great that I love, but man, Kill Tony blew all of those things out of the water for me, because I've always been very interested in comedy, and I've always had some, even when I was a kid going back, I remember the first thing I said I wanted to be was a comedian. And that was before I wanted to be like an actor or a musician or any of that nonsense that I still wouldn't mind doing, but I remember wanting to be a comedian when I was a kid, and like being obsessed with, and I hate what he did, but just, I was a huge Bill Cosby fan. I loved Bill Cosby himself. Was one of the most perfect pieces of comedy that I had ever seen, and I could recite the whole damn thing. And I mean, I loved, and I hate what he did now because I've been robbed of one of my heroes. But I would love that shit. And I remember we went to see Jeff Foxworthy when I was a kid, and I was spoiling all of his punchlines in the crowd because we had the VHS tapes of his show, and people around us were pissed off that I was just talking and giving up all the punchlines to every joke that he had. And my dad was embarrassed. My parents were embarrassed. I know I was just bad, but I remember doing that and being at Jeff Foxworthy's show and just being a kid and seeing that. I remember that. And when I found Kill Tony, by the way, what this is it is a show where Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redband started Rogan's podcast with him. And Hinchcliffe and Redband, Tony and Brian, have two guests that come on. And every week they have two established comedians who are, established comics. And they will come on and be part of a panel. And on this panel, like I said, Brian Redband, Tony Hinchcliffe, and two established comedians. And then they have this bucket of names. And in the beginning, it was just them, a couple of comics, and a bucket of names. And they would just draw names out of the bucket and bring them up on stage. And give them 60 seconds to do comedy. And then, depending on whether they did well or not so well, they would then be judged or roasted, rather, and or given pointers on their act, and tips on how to further yourself in comedy if you're interested in doing it. But then they introduced a band. In the beginning of Kill Tony, if you ever care to take a good long binge on a great podcast, Kill Tony is a good one to do that on, and I would suggest watching it from the beginning because you get to see so many great comics who are no longer with us anymore. Like Rowdy Roddy Piper was on there. And believe it or not, Rowdy Roddy Piper actually did some comedy around the end of his life. So he did some stand up. He was a guest on Kill Tony. Brody Stevens, R.I.P. Brody. Ralphie May, R.I.P. Ralphie. So many great comics who are no longer with us that were guests on that show. And I know that there's even more that I'm missing now, but those are the three that really come to mind. But anyway, so and I haven't forgotten about I'm Dying Up Here. I'm going back to that in a little bit, but I want to tie this all around and let you know what this thing is that I have fallen in love with, basically. So after a while, they introduced a band, and in the beginning, it was this weirdo named the Iron Patriot who just basically like stood to the side of the stage and had a little microphone set up, and then every week he got a little more and more annoying, a little more annoying, and then and by the way, Tony Hinchcliffe is one of those people who he has to have everything his way, and I love that because I'm that way. Like, I'm very much that way, and it's not that I want everybody to do things the way that I do things. But it's just that I feel like I have put forth the effort to figure out the best way to do things. And I can't trust that everyone else has put out the same effort that I've put out to figure out how to do these things. And I feel like Tony is the same exact way. I feel like he's like, you don't know the thought process that I've gone through to come to this conclusion. And if you did, you would have no question as to why I'm saying to do this a certain way, and you would just do it that way because you would understand that it was obviously better. So Tony is that way. And over the course of the show, the Iron Patriot got to be more and more annoying. So after, like, I don't know, 30 episodes or something like that. I'm sorry about this fucking chair. It sounds like a horror movie. After like, I don't know however many episodes he was a part of it, he was like, he got too big for the show. He just got too big for the show. He was going to go do something else with I think Doug Benson. By the way, Doug Benson, if you don't know who Doug Benson is, he is great. He's got a great show called Getting Doug with High, where a bunch of comedians just go smoke weed with him, and that's a great show too. But anyway, the Iron Patriot was going to try to do something with Doug, but Doug was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not having that. And I don't blame him because Iron Patriot was just weird. And anyway, that was the first entertainment. And then it graduated to the great Patty Reagan of Reagan and Watkins. And Patty Reagan started playing acoustic guitar. And when he first started, it's like he did this song, I can't remember what it was called, but he had the greatest voice I had heard, and I was like, shit, that is really, really good. And it was like, this doesn't fit the comedy part of it. Like, this dude is like playing some beautiful lyrics and outstanding vocals. And I was like, this is different, but I fucking love it. And then I listened to just a little bit more of the song, and obviously the punchline comes in, and it was just a long setup for a hilarious punchline in a song. And then from then on, Kill Tony had a band. So Pat Reagan was side stage with his guitar. Like, he had a microphone over there, and he would like play songs as people would come out. He would strum chords and stuff like that. And after a while of Pat Reagan, he invited his friend Jeremiah Watkins, who is the other half of Reagan and Watkins. By the way, Reagan and Watkins self-titled album that came out recently, so good. Go get that off of iTunes. But they came out with Reagan and Watkins, and they were now the band. And one of the greatest stories of Kill Tony was there was a guy who was pulled out of the bucket to do a minute. And he did his minute and did a pretty good job. And they found out that he was actually the drummer in the Pat Reagan's band, the Baby Boys. And they were like, okay, so they ended up bringing him on. His name is Joel Jimenez, Joelberg. And they brought him on after he got pulled out of the bucket and did a minute. Like, he was literally like just drawn out of the bucket and at random, and came on stage, did a minute, ended up joining the show, and is to this date probably he's probably one of the biggest attractions to the Kill Tony show. And that's saying a lot, because there's a lot of cool shit that you're going to get 1 to 2 solid stand-up comedians that are going to give you some great information on how to further a comedy career, or make fun of you for being awful at comedy, because that's what comedians do. And anyway, like, that's like, Joelberg is part of he's part of the main attraction of the show, which the band is great. Now, after a while of the band being the band, they graduated, and Pat Reagan moved on to do other things, and it became just Joelberg and Jeremiah Watkins, and they were joined by a hellacious musician by the name of Chroma Chris Dillon. And now he played bass, he plays guitar, he plays whatever stringed instrument needs to be played for Joel and Jeremiah to jam with. And there's sirens going off. Sirens. So they commit every week, the band commits every week to characters, and they will play characters. They'll just dress in character, and they will play that role for the entire show. They have been mailmen, the milkman, they have been prisoners, cat burglar. They have been President Trump and Hillary Clinton. They've been Bill and Hillary and Epstein recently. Last week, that's who they were. But they commit to certain characters all episode and stick to that, and it's so hilarious to watch. But that's part of the whole Kill Tony experience. So the reason I explain that is just in case you didn't know what Kill Tony was. I encourage you to watch it if you care about comedy at all, and even if you don't care about comedy, it's just a really good show. Like, you get to see people get on stage and experience that fear of being on stage in the Comedy Store. And in the beginning of Kill Tony, it started in the belly room of the Comedy Store, which is the attic, basically. And they eventually graduated to the main stage of the Comedy Store. And, like, being able to perform on the main stage of the Comedy Store, sometimes it's people's first time performing comedy in front of a crowd, and they get to do that in front of the crowd, usually a sold out crowd at the main stage. And that's amazing. But sometimes these people do really well. And when they do really well, you'll get to hear some really insightful things from, like, one of my favorite guests that Kill Tony's ever had on is a guy named Kirk Fox. And if you don't know who Kirk Fox is, if you watch Parks and Recreation, he was Sewage Joe from Parks and Recreation, which is an obscure character. But if you watch Parks and Rec, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. And he is so insightful. He has some of the most sage wisdom for up and coming comics, or even just people who aren't up and coming, but just they've been in it for a while and they just hit a plateau or a rut. He's got the most insightful advice that I've heard a lot of comics give, and he's also worth a follow on Instagram. Kirk Fox, he's hilarious. But anyway, you get to hear so many good tips from some of the pros of comedy. And it's almost like a free masterclass. Like, you see these things advertised on Facebook and Instagram lately, like these masterclass things where people are offering their people are offering their whatever tips or whatever for a masterclass. They're offering you their help for a certain fee. Kill Tony is literally like a masterclass for comedy that is 5 years long that you can watch for free on YouTube. And it's helped so much with my like in between song talk at gigs is so much better now, just because I've learned that, you know what, sometimes you just got to say that thing that you don't know how it's going to hit and see how it hits, and then continuously tweak that thing that you say until it hits the way that you want to. Because if you think that something is funny, then the one tip that they gave was throw it on Twitter, throw it on Facebook. If you think something is funny, then tweet it. If it gets a lot of retweets or it gets a lot of hits or something like that, and somebody who only has like a couple hundred followers like I do, that's not going to matter. I know they're thinking from their viewpoint, like they have thousands of followers. So if they put something funny on Twitter and it gets a shitload of retweets, they know that that's a funny bit and they can go with that. But I've just been doing that shit out live or saying it to a group of people and seeing how I get reactions on things, and just knowing that process and shit that I've learned from watching Kill Tony is helped out a fuckload since you can't do so much, man. I could stand on stage and I could play songs one after the other and not say a word between songs like Bob Dylan does. And that'd be cool, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not as good as Bob Dylan is at writing songs at this point in my life, and I can't stand on that alone. So I don't know. I like to talk to people between songs and shit like that. And Kill Tony's like really helped me be better at being funny. Like, I've always been okay with talking to people between songs, but I like to talk about real world shit a lot, and that's a little too heavy for a lot of people. So I've resorted to trying to make them laugh, and I got a couple of really good bits that I've been working out that work most of the time, but I've got to be in the right. I've noticed that I can say a bit the same exact way 2 nights in a row, say it the same exact way, and deliver it almost the exact same way. Just if I'm in a weird mood, it won't go well. Like, I have to be completely comfortable for the bit to work. And I don't know, just learning shit like that from just trying it in. And for most of my solo gigs, man, a lot of my solo gigs that I've been doing lately, I'll do like half stand up, half music. Like, I will talk as much as I play, and I kill it in tips in a lot of those gigs, man, because you're talking to the room, and it's best if you can. It's almost like heckling in a way. If somebody's like, not heckling, but if you can get somebody in the crowd who's comfortable with talking to you, you can ask, where you from, blah, blah, and then get their name, and then you can constantly go back to them throughout the rest of the night. Like, if you catch a point to where you think you've lost the room and you start talking to that one guy, everybody else in the room, or one girl, whoever he may be, you start talking to that person, and then everybody else in the room is like, perking up again, like, oh, so wait, I can be part of the conversation too? And a lot of people don't do that, but I'm actually fine with a room that talks back to me. I don't mind that. Now, if it's somebody who is obnoxiously doing so, then that I have a problem with. But I'm prompting most of this stuff, so if I throw out the invitation, and honestly, if I throw out the invitation and then somebody takes too much advantage of it, then I got no problem with saying that. Hey, now, I'm the one up here on the microphone. Now, you can call them fuck down or whatever have you. But I don't know. I'm pretty good about I don't know, making something funny in a situation. And if you make the person laugh or make the rest of the room laugh, you can still get your point across while still kind of, being funny in a way. And I've really been, I don't know, I've really been trying to do that lately, like working really hard to throw bits in and to, I don't know, make this a more enjoyable experience for those sitting in the crowd listening to it. Oh, you walk in here with a guy with an acoustic guitar, like, here comes Wonderwall. So I kind of like to give them something outside of what they would expect. Like, you don't expect for somebody to be doing like, a minute and a half of comedy between a set. And you know what works best for me is if I'm like talking about something on TV. Like if it's something like I can point to the TV and see like okay, I got this Domino's bit that I do. If I'll see like a Domino's commercial on the television or something like that, I can point out that and be like, man, Domino's is on top of this advertising shit. Like, I guarantee you I would be in a lot better shape if Whole Foods or Clean Eats would send me an email every day about all the specials they got going on, but they're just not as committed as Domino's is. And that's all there is to it. Because I mean, damn, if I don't get an email every day from Domino's telling me what they can, what kind of specials they're running and shit like that. And then usually people are like, I got some really good laughs out of that. Like if instead of Domino's sending me emails every day, if it were like Whole Foods, I might be in better shape. But still, like just shit like that. And I do really well with the observational stuff. Like I notice things that people do that not everybody would notice. Like just little weird things that people do that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on, but I notice. But anyway, like I said, all of these things that I've added to my show lately. I was trying to mix those two words, I think. Are all a product of Kill Tony and just watching nonstop episodes of Kill Tony for 4 months. And it literally is a masterclass on, honestly, public speaking even. It's a masterclass on public speaking about how to do it, and you get up there and it's like, you have to own the room. You get up there and you're the one with the microphone. You're in control. You have to understand that going into it. And it's really good. But watching that has changed a lot of the other stuff I've watched, because I did watch 5.5 years of Kill Tony in 4 months. I'm hearing things that they're talking about in year 3 of the show, which is 2 years ago, but to me it was 2 months ago, So I'm hearing things that they're saying, watch this show called I'm Dying Up Here. And I heard that name, that show come up so many times, and Tony Hinchcliffe was like, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. So I made a mental note. Okay, when I finish Kill Tony, I'll start watching it. And like all these comics are speaking so highly of this show, like surely it's not going to go anywhere. So I got nothing to worry about. I'll watch it whenever I get done with Kill Tony. And sure enough, I finished Kill Tony. And once I did that, I was like, okay, I'm going to catch up with all of these other shows that I've got. And it couldn't have come at a better time. I finished Kill Tony. And then Stranger Things dropped. The new season of Stranger Things. The new season of Dark dropped. The new season of Mindhunter dropped. A lot of new seasons of shit. Dave Chappelle, new stand-up. Like a lot of new content to watch dropped. And I got to watch all that shit as soon as I finished Kill Tony. So I kind of just jumped off of that and onto something else. But I watched all of those things, all that stuff, like Mindhunter, Stranger Things, Dark, which, by the way, watch all of those shows. Stranger Things, Mindhunter, and Dark are all very, very good shows. But I watched all of those in their entirety. And after I got done with that, I was like, well, shit, what do I do now? And then I thought, oh yeah, I'm Dying Up Here. I've heard so many good things about that show. I think I'm going to start that now. I'm going to watch an episode of it and see how I like it. So I watched an episode of it, and I was like, shit, this is great. Like, this is... And I'm one of those people who every single time I start something, I think this... And this is every single time, guys. I'm not exaggerating. Every single time I watch something, I think if it's good and I'm enjoying it for the first couple episodes, I'm like, this could be the best show I've ever seen. This could be the best show I've ever seen. And I thought that when I'm Dying Up Here, like, wow, this could be the best show I've ever seen. Because I'm a huge Marvelous Miss Maisel fan. If you're not a fan of that, you should watch that on Prime. The Marvelous Miss Maisel is so damn good. But I'm Dying Up Here reminded me of that a bit, but it was a lot more honest, I think. So, Marvelous Miss Maisel, I'm Dying Up Here. I watched the first episode, and fuck, this could be the best show I've ever watched. I watched the second episode. Jesus, this really could be the best show I've ever watched. And then 3, 4, 5 episodes in, and I'm convinced. I was like, dude, this is so damn good. And there are a couple of comics who I recognized from other podcasts. Andrew Santino, who I'm a huge fan of. He's a great comedian and very funny. And also Eric Griffin, who I recognized from Kill Tony. And there's a couple of other big names that were in I'm Dying Up Here that I recognized through Kill Tony. Earl Skankle, excuse me, Earl Skankle was in Kill Tony. He was in I'm Dying Up Here. Dom Herrera, he's a Kill Tony regular. Well, not Kill Tony regular, but a regular guest. There's just Al Madrigal. I know I'm forgetting a lot of other names that I just don't know right offhand, but it doesn't matter. A lot of great comedians are in this show, and I'm very familiar with Eric Griffin and Andrew Santino's acting or performance, like their stand up. But I wasn't. I didn't peg them for great actors, but there was like. In the show, Eric Griffin plays this guy who just gotten out of the Vietnam War, and he's a comic he's an old timer comic in a way, not old timer, but like an old head around the club who's been at it for a long time, and there's a couple of scenes in it where he has to like actually act, and the same with Andrew Santino, man. I was like, shit, dude, these guys can act, and I went on Twitter. I was like, man. Andrew Santino and Eric Griffin can act. They can fucking act. I was like, I'm Dying Up Here is the best thing I've ever seen, and I hope it never ends. And a couple minutes later, I get a notification. Eric Griffin retweeted your tweet. And I was like, and don't laugh at me for getting excited about this, because I'm excited. It's cool. Eric Griffin's a hero of mine, man. He's retweeting my tweet. So I look at it, and it was like, I got some bad news for you. He's like, and the news is over a year old. And I was like, really? Shit. I'm like halfway through the first season. So I Google I'm Dying Up Here, and I see season 3. Oh, okay, cool. I'm Dying Up Here season 3. I click it, and it was like, I'm Dying Up Here. Showtime cancels after 2 seasons. And I'm like, fuck. How do they do that to me? But then, and you know what? I listened to, after I finished I'm Dying Up Here. There's two great seasons, by the way. They're on Showtime. I encourage you to do what you have to do to watch that shit. It is so good. But, in that being said, Kill Tony turned me on to I'm Dying Up Here. And I'm Dying Up Here turned me on to Eric Griffin's podcast, Riffin' with Griffin, which I've been binging lately, and he's only got like 30, 40 episodes, something like that. So it's not hard to catch up on that one pretty quick. And as soon as I catch up on that, I'm going to catch up on Whiskey Ginger, which is Andrew Santino's podcast, and he's only up to like 30 something episodes too. So those are pretty easy to catch up on. Anyway, I was really upset that this thing was canceled, and I had just gotten into it, but Eric Griffin said better than anybody else I could imagine. He's like, I'm glad you guys love the show, and it's like a cult classic now. He's like, but I wish y'all motherfuckers would have watched that shit when it was new, when it was on television. But I think that it was competing with like Shameless. I think it came on right after Shameless went off on Sundays, I think. But I love that fucking show. Anyway, Jim Carrey was the executive producer of that show. And he has a show that's out right now on Showtime called Kidding, which is very good as well, that I've been watching a lot lately. But man, dude, I'm Dying Up Here was so fucking good. So fucking good. And Kidding is very good too. Kidding is about by the way, I didn't tell you what I'm Dying Up Here is about. I'm Dying Up Here is the it's set in 1969, 1970. And it's about a comedy club in LA. It's loosely based on the Comedy Store, and Jim Carrey was a Comedy Store regular. It's loosely based on the Comedy Store and Jim Carrey's early life as a stand-up comedian in a way, and a lot of people that he knew, because he was the producer. I'm pretty sure that this was his brainchild, and Man, I hate that they didn't do more of that. And I wish that some other network like Prime or Netflix would pick that shit up. Because especially Netflix doing all the comedy stuff that they're doing now. And even Prime. Jim Gaffigan's new stand-up is out on Prime. So Prime's making a lot of good moves in comedy as well. Man, I wish that somebody would pick up I'm Dying Up Here and give us a special, or just a movie, and I'm Dying Up Here movie. I want to know what happened after that shit, man. There was just a lot of question marks. There was a lot of question marks left on that shit, man. But damn, was it ever good. And you could tell they might have known that they were going to get canceled, because that last episode that they did, it was like a different season finale. It was like, we're going to try to tie up all the loose ends. It was kind of the same thing Newsroom did. Like, if you ever watched Newsroom, the very last episode of Newsroom, it was like the last episode of Parks and Rec. It was like where they tie everything together. They give you everything that you want in the last episode. And it's like, man, it's everything that we want except another season, which is what we all really want. And I'll tell you one thing, man. If we ever get a damn, like a Parks and Recreation Christmas special, life complete. That'd be best. Because Parks and Rec, I believe, is my favorite show of all time. Andy Griffith's show is very good too, but that's like for sentimental reasons. Sentimental reasons. My dad, a huge Andy Griffith fan, and I just associate that with him. So, I mean, that will probably always be on paper my favorite show. Man, Parks and Rec, so damn good. But anyway, I know that I used to talk about things that I've watched and things that I haven't been listening to a lot of music lately, except for like Tom Waits. I've been listening to a lot of my original music just to try to learn the words to a lot of my songs and stuff like that. And that's a really hard thing to do. It's hard to learn the words to your own songs because you know the story. And that's the part that helps you learn other songs is like finding the story in the song. So finding the story in the song sort of puts the words together for you. So like now that I already know the story of my songs, I don't really need to learn the story. I just need to learn the words, and that's so hard. But anyway, all right. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys get out of here. We've only been rolling for about 48 minutes on the audio. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys get out of here and get on with your days and your lives. And I'm going to watch... I can't decide what I'm going to watch next. I have been watching a lot of the Something's Burning episodes that I've missed because I started watching that one from the beginning and they just did so many, it kind of got ahead of me. I've been watching a lot of those lately. But I think I'm going to watch Alan Makovsky's new episode so I don't get behind on that. I treat these podcasts like notifications. Like when people that I respect come out with a new podcast, I feel like, and I do this, and I don't know of anybody else who I can ask about this because I'm the only podcaster that I know that, well, I know more now that I can ask. But I will watch people who I respect, like, whether or not it's great content or not. Like, if it's somebody who I respect, like Natalie, or not Natalie, Ali Makovsky, or Jeremiah Watkins, he's got a podcast called Jeremiah Wonders, or Your Mom's House, or Eric Griffin's podcast. Like, I feel like I owe it to them to watch their podcast and listen to their podcast because I want people to listen to mine. So I feel like putting that out into the world is going to in turn make people listen to my podcast, maybe? I don't fucking know. And this shit's boring as fuck most days unless I have a guest. And I'm sorry for that. I know it is. But I don't know. There might be some weirdos out there that just like listening to me sit here and talk random shit about television shows that I'm watching with my hair all on top of my head, strumming random progressions on the guitar. Yep. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here and watch some Ali Makovsky's podcast and catch up on that. But just in case you skip past this part at the beginning, please go to mystuffpodcast.com and all the links to my social media, the podcast social media that I don't really use a whole lot, are there. But on the about/music section, there are links to all of my personal social media there on that page. And there are also links to all of the original singles that I've released lately that you can download and stream from Spotify and all that stuff. And I've been awarded the blue check mark on Spotify, so I'm an official Spotify verified artist. So please follow me on Spotify, Kelsey Hudgins on Spotify, and I've got all of my original tunes that I've released over the last couple of months are there. Yeah, please do that. Follow me on Instagram at YonderWizard, YonderWizzerd, or the letters that are down at the bottom of the screen on the YouTube page. And if you're just listening to this on audio, I encourage you to go to YouTube and click subscribe on Kelsey Hudgins on the channel. And please subscribe. And I'm trying to get up. I'm like 342 right now, or 341, somewhere around there. Trying to get up to 420. That's my next goal that I want to make it to. So help me get there. And I'm so stoked for those listeners that I do have and the subscribers that I do have. I'm so thankful for y'all, and I really appreciate y'all showing back up and leaving your love in the comments and clicking that like button and all that jazz. I'm stoked that I have you guys. I really am stoked that I have you. So yeah, there's that. All right, screwballwhiskey.com, ladies and gentlemen. Go into your local liquor store, wherever you are right now, and ask for Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. If they do not have it, they will know where to find it. So, yep, go do that. It should be in liquor stores everywhere very soon, and I'm very happy to have been somewhat a part of this ride from the very beginning. And also, there's going to be another podcast episode coming to you over the next couple of days involving Screwball Whiskey that I promised you guys a couple of months back. It's actually happening this weekend, so stay tuned. And Screwball Whiskey, tomorrow's stories begin right here. SKREW, ballwhiskey.com. Go check that shit out. All right, in a world full of shitty people, don't be one of those people. Be a good person. Peace, bitches. All right, YouTubers, let's do this intro thing here. I want to hear Norm again. Damn it, this chair.
If you like stuff, then check out the MI Stuff podcast with Mr. Kelsey Hudgins. He's a fella.
Did I get it right? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Screwball Whiskey Studios. Indeed, Screwball Whiskey. Tomorrow's stories begin right here. Screwball Whiskey, SKREW, ballwhiskey.com. Hey guys, how you living? You doing well? Good. Glad to hear that. So in this episode, and by the way, if my mic sounds weird, I'm sorry. I know it's a lot of like I don't know, a lot of weird. Sounds digitally and strange, like some sort of an effect on it. I don't know. Sounds weird. Anywho, in this episode, I talked about Kill Tony. And does that better? I don't know. It just sounds like I just turned the compression down, which is all I did. Anyway, I talked about Kill Tony a lot, and I explained what it was and how watching Kill Tony has improved my in-between song chatter and all the comics and all the cool shit that I've like been turned on to after doing a 4-month stint with Kill Tony. But anyway, yeah, I talked about all that shit, and I didn't ramble too much off of that topic until I started talking about other shows and stuff that I've found through Kill Tony and other suggestions. So for those who haven't listened to the podcast in a long time, when I first started doing the podcast, one of the main things I would do is ask guests, what's something that you're listening to or something that you're watching that people wouldn't find, normally, that they wouldn't just stumble upon. And I haven't been doing that as much as of late as I used to do because I was just binging on, Game of Thrones, Kill Tony, and all that stuff, which I explain all of this in just a second. So I've just said it twice. But anyway, so I wanted to give you guys an episode of something, the stuff that I've been watching, stuff that I've been listening to. So any episode or any show that I talk about during this, trust me, it's good because I don't watch bad shit. But then again, maybe I do. Maybe it's something. Maybe I do watch bad shit. Who cares, though? I like what I watch, or else I don't watch it. And you know what? It's hard for me to find something that I don't like, because if I don't think I like something, I just don't watch it. And I'm usually pretty accurate on what I think I will like. But anyway, yeah, that's what the content's about. So, warned. Please go to mistuffpodcast.com. On mistuffpodcast.com, you'll find links to the social media, links to the tip jar. If you guys are enjoying any of this content and you want to help out financially at all, it's not required, not necessary at all. But if you want to help out, that's where you can do it. There's a tip jar right on the front page there. There's a link to screwballwhiskey.com. There's links on the about/music section for my personal social media pages and the links to all of the singles that I've released lately and all that good stuff. And if you guys want to just follow me straight on social media, at Kelsey Hudgins on Twitter, at YonderWizard, WIZZERD on Instagram, and just simply Kelsey Hudgins on Facebook. Also, check out Kelsey Hudgins Music. Follow Kelsey Hudgins on Reverb Nation for where all my shows are going to be coming up soon and all that jazz. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys get to some content. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 166 of In My Stuff Podcast, I think. Yeah. Enjoy, motherfuckers. All right, YouTubers. Thanks for hanging out with me. I didn't even have the page open up. I don't even know who was here. But thanks for hanging out. I appreciate your kindness. In a world full of shitty people, don't be one of those people. Be a good person. Peace, bitches.